Ladies and gentlemen, now hosting the RizzoCast, put your hands together for Steven Risotto!
What is happening, everybody, and welcome. This is episode number 60. Somehow I made it to 60 episodes of RizzoCast. I'm Steven Risotto, and today we are joined by none other than a guy who's been in baseball for 30 years, former Cincinnati Reds pitching coach. It's Mack Jenkins. Mack, how you doing? Thanks for coming on.
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, so I really wanted to get someone in here that knew pitching, and not to say that people that have come on in the past don't know pitching, but I don't think I've ever had a pitching coach's perspective on the game. And we've seen, I want to start it off right away here. We've seen 6 no-hitters this season, Mac. And you know, that's like 1 or 2 away from the single season all-time season high. And it's the end of May. So what is happening? Why is there 6 no-hitters this year already?
Well, 2 are against the Seattle, who's hitting 200 as a team. And I don't want to take anything away from the pitchers, but I just think the ability for the pitchers to plan is way ahead of the hitting right now. And I think to me, there's a lot of confusion in the hitting community with, like, you know, launch angle, hit the ball in the air. And, you know, that's great. But man, there's a lot of times when a base hit to the opposite field will win a game, you know, or start a rally. And that's just the truth. And so I think that's probably why we've seen all the no-hitters. And the guys that are good, all these major league starters are good pitchers, but they're not like, you know, we didn't see Max Scherzer have one yet. So those are probably coming. I wouldn't be surprised if we see double-digit no-hitters, because a lot of them historically are thrown in September when the rosters expand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we haven't seen a cycle yet, or so that's interesting. So as a pitching coach, and you know, even as a player, when you're in the dugout and you know there is a no-hitter or perfect game going on, what is the lingo? I mean, we talked about this for a second off air. What is the lingo in terms of, do you say anything? Is it mentioned among coaches, like, you know, hey, we want to keep this guy in even though he's at 100 pitches, it's the 7th inning? What is kind of the mindset there when a guy has a no-hitter going on?
I would say if there is a high pitch count involved, you have to, there is some discussion, because there's long-term health involved. And you always want to give that pitcher a chance to make history, especially in the major league level. You know, the Rays did it one year with Edwin Jackson. He threw that no-hitter. I think he walked like 8. And, but, you know, he threw 150 pitches or around that, you know, but they just said, all right, we're going to give him a week off. You know, we're going to give him an extra 2 days rest. So if it's a pitch count thing, you talk about it with the manager. But man, once you get past that 6th inning, you're just like making eye contact. No one wants to talk about it. I know Homer Bailey threw 2 no-hitters when I was in Cincinnati. And the first one, man, was a 1-0 game. It's AJ Burnett and Homer Bailey. And it was like a whisper of, hey man, we need to get Chapman up, just playing catch, you know, not so anybody knows we're getting him ready, but in case he gives up a hit, you know, we might just take him out at that point. And it was just like, you know, he just played catch, like trying to hide it. So no one knew that we were getting someone ready.
Yeah. And a lot of managers do that. I know in 2012, Bruce Bochy had someone warm up during Matt Cain's perfect game, had him warm up in the tunnel. So that's definitely interesting. Yeah. I want to get back to pitch count, because, you know, it's anything over 100 is looked at as criminal almost in this game. And, you know, with the way these athletes are, you know, prepared and conditioned and train, is that even a necessary measure to take with some of these guys and the way they're built up for over 100 pitches? Because I can tell you some of these guys, like a Max Scherzer, as you mentioned, could definitely throw 120 pitches in a start, maybe not for 35 games, but what is kind of your philosophy in terms of pitch count?
Well, I tell you, Riz, has become, media is a big part of being a manager in the major leagues. And, you know, you're criticized so heavily when your pitcher, say, goes 115 or 120 pitches. Even a couple of years ago, the Nats won the World Series in 2019. Opening day, the media was crushing Davey Martinez because I think Scherzer went like 114 pitches opening day. So I think pitch counts, man, how somebody came up with a 100 is arbitrary. I have no idea. I can tell you that in average major league start, even not just currently, but going back a few years back, is less than 6 innings. And it's gone down, each year it's gone down where the number of outs are recorded by the starter. And I really do think it comes from your expectation of your starter. And, they do it in the minor leagues, guys go 4 innings and they're out of the game. Or we saw it in the World Series. Blake Snell came out of a historic start because he had turned the lineup over twice. And, you may have guidelines that you live by, but if you have a trained eye, you say, man, this might be a Kerry Wood night. He might strike out 20. I've got to roll I got to roll with this. And, you can deal with the extra day's rest after that game. But I think if they leave Blake Snell in, you win the game, you push it to the next game. And, they chose not to do that. And the rest is history.
Yeah.
So I think the pitch count is all about an expectation. If I expect to go, 60, 85 pitches, that's all I go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no doubt. And Blake Snell was facing Mookie Betts for the 3rd time. Well, he was supposed to face Mookie Betts for the 3rd time, who was 0 for 2 with 2 strikeouts against him up until that point.
And Mookie was hitting less against left-handed pitching than right-handed pitching for the season. So, it just, some things don't make sense.
It's definitely an interesting philosophy. So would you say it's easier to pitch in today's game, considering the amount of holes that guys have in their swings? You brought up launch angle. Or is it a bit harder when, everybody in the lineup is capable of hitting 15 and they could change the game with the one swing? So is it harder? Is it maybe the same? You just have to do a little things, some things differently. What would it be like pitching in today's game?
I think that you just have to pitch a little bit differently because hitters 1 through 9 can hit homers. And so I don't think I wouldn't say it's harder or easier. They're always hard, man. Major league hitters are good. Mm-hmm. And it's, the trend right now is hitters are down, but man, those guys are good. And I just think as long as you're prepared, and you have to, if you're a starter, it's easier. You go 5 innings and it's like high five, get in the ice tub, and we bring in the relievers, and different teams have different, organizations have different philosophies, but to be a starter, it's easier. This quality start has been a statistic that's used, and it's even used in like arbitration hearings. 6 innings, 3 runs. Well, that's a 4.5 ERA. You're below average, but you're rewarded. But now it's like, I think they'll probably change it to 5 innings and 3 runs, because that's today's expectation. So it's easier to be a starter. If you're a reliever, man, you're in there a lot. I know that because those trends of starters are going down, relievers going up, and in the next 2 years, if it doesn't change, they're going to meet about the innings accumulated by starting pitching and relief pitching. It's kind of scary.
I know it's a great back of the baseball card stat for sure, but do these pitchers in the big leagues really care about the wins? Do they at all look at that? Do you guys as a coaching staff look at that?
The players care, I can tell you that, because wins are hard to come by, man, especially if you're a starting pitcher. And I do get the argument that a win can be overrated. I saw a game the other day where I think Brad Boxberger pitched a 1/3 of an inning and he got the win. The starter went 4 2/3 for Milwaukee, maybe, and he had a high pitch count. Boxberger gets out of the jam in the 5th. They pinch hit for him, and he gets the win. He threw 3 pitches. So I get the part where people say wins are overrated. Wins by starters are not overrated. And in their outlier times, Drew Hutchinson one year won like 12 games and had ERA over 6 for Toronto. So but those are like exceptions. The rule is if you got to start, it means you stayed in the game as a starter. You gave your team a chance to win. And that saying is, it could be, people say, oh, that's old school. Man, that's always the starter's job, not the opener, but the starter's there to give you a chance to win the game. And those wins are, I mean, they're hard to come by. If you break down an entire major league season, the difference between winners and losers is really less than a run per game. So getting a win is difficult. And for starters, I think it's still an important statistic.
Yeah, just ask Jacob deGrom with the Mets.
That's right, man. I mean, for whatever reason, they don't score when he's pitching. And he's like the best pitcher in the game. He's the most dominant pitcher in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And pitching's evolved really, probably since you began teaching it and you began playing it.
Yeah.
What do you think has evolved most in, your coaching style to keep up with kind of the trends? Because, are you looking at numbers now? Are you looking at, obviously mechanics is probably a constant while being a pitching instructor, but what has kind of changed the most in terms of your approach?
Well, I think the thing that's probably changed the most with pitchers throwing harder now than they ever did is the conditioning. And I think the pitching coach, it's gone in different ways. So when I first became a pitching coach, the pitching coach was in charge of the conditioning. Then when it went to the strength coach and like it was hands off for the pitching coach. And then it was decided you guys need to work together. And now the conditioning has changed so much. For the better, I think, as far as velocity goes, for the better. I think our injury rate industry wide is about the same as it was 10 years ago. With all the, teams have physical therapists, they have acupuncturists. Everybody has 2 or 3 trainers now. But the biggest thing I think is working with the strength coach more, and then working with your analytics team more to say, this guy's 2-seam fastball is much better, more successful than his 4-seam. So maybe we need to change the ratio that he uses those in a game, or to say, do you think the analytics team tells me, do you think you can add some side to side movement with his slider, instead of being so, straight down, can you get any horizontal movement to make it better? Because the numbers say he would be much better. And that's a challenge. And I think a lot of those guys are right a lot of times. And so I think that's what the pitching coach is, working with others in the analytics department. And you mentioned the pitching mechanics. I think the inception of high-speed video has changed how we talk about pitching mechanics. And maybe some things we did, even like you said, I started 30 years ago. Some of those beliefs are proved not true by science and by these people use the markers in labs to show what muscles are firing when for pitchers, and so working with those people is different. So but still you have to teach guys how to pitch. Strikes early in the count are good. Putting guys away when you're ahead, competing when you're behind. Those things are still really important. And a lot of pitchers, I think, are missing that now. But we see all the dominant pitchers, a lot of them are getting it.
Mm-hmm. So before starts, I want to ask you this. Before starts, that there's always so much talk about how, catchers and the pitchers and the pitching coaches go over hitters. What is that meeting actually like? Is it, do you give information on the other hitters? Is it driven by the catcher? Is it driven by the pitcher? Who kind of takes control in those meetings?
Well, the pitching coach needs to take charge. That's who takes charge. And, around 3:30 for a 7:00 game, the opposing team usually announces their lineup. And so, I've taken time to make notes on each hitter, and that a lot of that came from, say my research or the research from the analytics team. You put the lineup in the catcher's locker, and the good catchers like Tucker Barnhart, they come in early too, and they might refresh their memory with some, looking at some videos of the hitters or looking at the notes that were handed out at the beginning of the series. Same with the pitcher. And it's not generic. I think in the past it was generic notes for the starting pitcher, but now it's like notes based on what you do, and what pitchers similar to you do in the major leagues, with similar velocity or similar spin. This is how they've gotten that hitter out. So And when you go in those meetings, it is a pitching coach leads it, but when you get going, it's great when the catcher and the pitcher take over the meeting. You're just kind of like trying to guide it in a certain direction, because those guys have to buy in and they have to know what the plan is on each hitter, man. Because you're facing the Dodgers and you got Seager and Bellinger and you got these other hitters. You need to know what you're doing going into the game. How am I going to get strike one with the bases loaded with Clay Bellinger at the plate?
Clay Bellinger.
That's his dad, Corey. Tells you how old I am. I know Clay.
Just messing with you. No, Bill Lasky came on this podcast as well. That's another one that came on, and he said the most important pitch in the game is strike one. And I know you just brought that up. Now, kind of going off of that here. When was the first time you heard spin rate? Like, do you remember a certain time when the first time you heard that term, spin rate?
Well, I will tell you, this is a true story. The first time I heard it was when I have a daughter who was a really good pitcher, softball pitcher. And man, so she graduated high school in 2012. Around 2009, she's going to a pitching coach in Clearwater, Florida, who had this ball that measured spin. The coach's name is Cindy Bristow, who's in the Softball Hall of Fame. So the first time I actually heard it was from her before all this like went crazy with baseball. And she talked about spin. And I'll tell you what, Riz, I used to go to the ballpark and I would talk to other pitching coaches. I would go, how come we don't talk about spin? Because in softball, man, they're talking about spin all the time. How you make the ball rise, how you make the ball drop. They always talk about spin. And so, I mean, when it came out, I was all in because I loved it. And, you know, the spin is on the ball is so important. You know, I get the best demonstration for me, or best example is 4 pitches thrown at 90 miles an hour by all 6'1" right-handed pitchers. And they all have different spin, end up in different spots in the strike zone, you know, so that's how important spin can be. And, you know, you can use spin rate as a coach to, especially with the fastball, to determine, is my guy going to be better up in the zone or he's going to be better down in the zone with movement. And I mean, that's a way that I think helps pitchers evolve quicker. I think we shorten the learning curve with using like what each person's individual spin rate is.
Yeah. And the Astros and the Rays were really ahead of their times when it comes to pitching and this kind of stuff. I know Garrett Cole went from Pittsburgh to Houston and they said, hey, if you use this pitch more, you're going to be, you know, more effective. Charlie Morton all of a sudden added 98 to his repertoire. And he was throwing, you know, low 90s, high 80s, and he's a sinker ball guy. Speaking of sinker ball guys, does that still play in today's game with launch angle? Is still, you know, do ground ball guys exist still?
Well, Riz, they do. And I'll tell you, like, I saw both of those guys pitch in Pittsburgh, Cole and Morton. You know, that was just like, to me, like, this is going to be our philosophy. And we're going to, you know, throw all these sinkers, and everybody threw sinkers, AJ Burnett, Cole, Morton. And, you know, they had some success, but that is like to me, like a flaw in coaching or your organizational deals. Like, you need to take the player's strength in consideration all the time. And you're right, Cole, when he started using 4-seamers and throwing up in the zone, and when Charlie Morton started airing it out, I mean, both these guys improved. You know, their performance improved. There's no question. It's not my opinion. That the numbers, the statistics will verify that. And I think sinker ballers today, honestly, you see some guys with some ridiculous movement now. I think the thought of, and teaching a good sinker in the past, it would be like, hey, we need to just get balls that go, you know, down. And now we're seeing guys have such success with balls that just run horizontally, and they're still called sinkers, you know. And the balls thrown with 2 seams do move down more than the 4-seam fastballs. But you see a lot of pitchers having success with just fastballs that run they're arm side runners to me. And people swing and miss, man. I watch it every night. I watch it on Pitching Ninja.
Yeah.
And, and it's just like, I think the philosophy of throwing that pitch has changed a little bit, where it's okay to have a whole lot of run. You just try to match it up with your slider, that might have a whole lot of Frisbee action. And that's what people do with the pitch tunneling now, So I think sinker ballers do exist, but I think the emphasis on making your ball just go down like a true sinker is more now of a running fastball, and people are having a lot of success with it.
Yeah, Pitching Ninja is awesome. When you said Pitching Ninja, I thought of Pitching Ninja and Sync. I thought of Blake Trinan. Two guys.
Oh my gosh,
he's on there all the time. Every pitch he throws, it looks like a wiffle ball. It's amazing.
The amount of movement he gets, that sinker he gets, and then he added that cutter now, and it's just like these balls explode, and he had a good breaking ball to go with it. So I mean, he's unbelievable. And I saw him when he was with the Nationals. He was not even close to the pitcher he is today if you just measure him by stuff wise. I mean, he's ridiculous.
Yeah, and it tells you how trendy relievers are on the market, because he had a great year with the A's. He might have been an all-star, then he was non-tendered.
Right.
So then he got a $10 million deal with the Dodgers to fix their bullpen. So it's pretty amazing. But yeah, that's a great point about the Pirates. And Glasnow was saying that, it's the same program for every single guy over there.
Right.
And they were behind the curve, and he got to Tampa, he said, and he felt like he could be himself and pitch to his strengths.
Right.
In terms of Colorado, I want to hit Colorado for a second, because it's a hitter's ballpark, clearly with the altitude, and Great American Ballpark is a hitter's ballpark too.
It is.
But I mean, how do you develop pitching when you play in a ballpark that just flat out does not help you at all? I mean, Colorado's tried many different ways to do this. They've tried, I'm trying to think of some names here off the top of my head. Jeff Francis, a ground ball guy like that. They've tried
Mike Hampton.
The school systems are good over there.
Deal there.
The school systems are good over there, and then Chassin is another guy I think of, and and they haven't really gone with the power pitchers, and I guess Herman Marquez and John Gray are kind of fit that profile. But how do you develop pitching and just a place where, and I guess even Great American Ballpark could fit this profile, just a place where all the odds are against you?
Well, I'll say for Colorado, man, I could tell you, I did my first 2 years in the big leagues was assistant pitching coach. Then I was a couple of years as bullpen coach, but I also did all the advanced work. And man, I researched Colorado. There's a BATS system, it's called. It's like baseball analytics, something in there. But I just did all the home games for the Rockies. And you're looking at what pitches would work. And I did it over a period of time. And I was like, and what pitches work better on the road versus, by the same, you took all the variables out. And so I would always try to prepare that way when we went into play the Rockies. And we had some success, I think more than other teams, by the way we pitched. And when you wrote a scouting report for Nolan Arenado or Blackman, you just did it on how they performed at home. You took away the road games and you just look at how they hit at home, and how they pitch at home is differently. How they hit with their strengths at home are different than they were on the road. And we had some success. When you execute, you still have to execute. You have a good plan. You still have to execute. But, I think a couple of years ago, the Rockies said, we've missed the boat and we are going to try to sign guys who miss bats. And they got Gray and Hoffman, and I know Hoffman is now with Cincinnati, but they just try to miss the bat because the strikeout rates there are still about the same as the other ballparks. And some pitches just don't work as good there. And the sinker is one of them. They tried high grass, that outfield is so big there. There's different things there. But, the Great American, you give up a lot of cheap home runs, man. And, like Fangraphs and places, it'll show you that this home run was a home run in Cincinnati and New York and Colorado, and that's it. The other ballparks, it was not. So it is. Your mistakes really get amplified there in Cincinnati. I'd say you give up we would call them front row Joes. You give up a whole lot of front row Joe homers, man. And the same thing, I think you just have to pitch your game. You know, in 2012, I was part of that team. It went to the playoffs. We lost to the Giants. You know, that, but the thing was, the staff was so good, man. The staff was excellent. They set franchise records. And this is a franchise that was in the World Series in 76, 77, won those games, 72, 75. You know, we set franchise records for strikeouts, for innings by starting pitchers. And starters pitched 161 games, the same 5 guys. And I think it is just like, you just have to put that out of your mind and pitch your game, you know. And one thing I will say, the bullpen of Chapman, Sean Marshall, Jonathan Broxton, they by far led the league in strikeouts. So they missed a whole lot of bats, and that matters. Logan Ondrusik was in there in his heyday, Hoover, you know, so it's a lot of guys who struck people out, man. The strikeout rates for that bullpen were incredible.
Oh no, absolutely. And I'm in San Francisco right now, so naturally I watch a lot of Giants games, and I remember that series well. And one guy that
me too, cost me a lot of money.
And one guy that would have played a huge part in that series is Johnny Cueto. And I think the Reds would have won that series if Cueto had started.
Yeah, I think for sure, man.
Mm-hmm. And
you know, he had an oblique. I don't know if he faced like 1 hitter, 2 hitters, but yeah, he was out with that oblique.
And Latos was the guy that came in after, huh?
Yeah, we used the bullpen to pitch the first and second inning, and then we brought Latos in the 3rd inning so that he could have time to go through his normal like starters routine, get stretched by the trainer, you know, go out in the bullpen and get as many pitches as he needed, like it was a normal start. And we just told him, hey, your start just is going to begin in the 3rd inning.
Latos, not a beloved guy in San Francisco, by the way.
No, I don't know where he is beloved.
He just looks like he was such a villain because he pitched with the Padres, came up in 2010, and you know, during that dramatic, it came down to 162 between those two teams, and Latos signed a ball that said "I hate SF," and then gave it to a fan, and he's also thrown a ball over because the parking lot's beyond the bleachers in left field. He threw a ball over and it broke a sunroof of one of the broadcasters.
I remember. I heard all about it.
Yes, Latos, interesting guy. Back to Cueto here. Cueto's a fun guy to watch pitch, and
he's my favorite.
Is he? Why?
Well, I guess the reason is, you know, I was a pitching coordinator when he was in 18-year-old in the Dominican Republic. You know, he got a tryout on the side of the road. And the scout offered him 10 grand to sign, and there's like, okay. And he has been awesome ever since. He came over to the States, I can't remember right now, 2006, maybe 2007. And I can remember he pitched a year in the rookie league. And I like told the general manager and the farm director, he's going to go to Dayton the next year. And they're like, oh, he's not ready. I'm like, this is the best guy we have. He's ready. So then he went to Dayton as either 18 or 19-year-old. And, by the halfway point, he was promoted to the Florida State League. And, the next thing you know, he's in the big leagues. He makes his debut in Arizona. Brian Price was a pitching coach. I think he struck out 12 that day. And somewhere in there, Brian and I were talking, and he's like, I need him to stay close a little longer. And I got this idea to add the little turn, right? And so the rest of it, man, Johnny just went with all the gyrations, and he did it like that from one side day to like his next game, where he, did the over rotation and the pitch. And then the next thing you know, he's hesitating, and it just seemed to grow. And he's fun to watch because he's an incredible competitor. Incredible. And his preparation, he works so hard the 4 days in between. And he's like, oh, I can't wait till Saturday, because he's going to get the pitch that day. And his assortment of pitches is fun. I enjoy being around him.
So you came up with the turn.
I did.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah. And he seems like he has so much fun playing the game, and
he does. That's for sure.
And even if you follow him on social media, I mean, the guy's amazing. Like if you look at his pictures with the farm and the horses,
yep.
I mean, it's just like he's somebody you want to be. If you could trade play, I mean, and he's also somebody that needs a TV show. I mean, and it would be worth it to watch it. So,
hey man, he's really funny, and he's really great for young Latin players because he pushes them. He pushes them. He knows. He tells them this is going to be harder for us. We gotta go. We can't do anything stupid. And he's hard on them in a good way. Like it's like a father to him, and he helps everybody around him get better. Yeah,
he's definitely one of the fun guys to watch. And there's also some success coming from some of those pitchers that have recently pitched at Great American Ballpark. Anthony DeSclafani, I know you know him a little bit.
Yeah.
He's a guy who had a rough outing against the Dodgers on Saturday, but
he was yeah. I saw that. It was a 9 or 10 runs.
Yeah, he got roughed up a little bit. I think the Dodgers touched him for 10 earned runs. Gavin Lux hit the grand slam. But aside from that, I mean, he has like a sub 2, maybe it was sub 2.2 ERA. So what kind of changes for him? And even a guy like him who struggled in Cincinnati, but comes over to a more kind of a pitcher friendly ballpark. What is kind of the difference? Because you could leave the ball up a little bit. You could pitch up in the strike zone a bit more. So what have you seen from DeSclafani and other guys that have made the transition?
Well, Disco is a great competitor.
Disco, yeah.
And he came up. Reds got him from the Blue Jays, and he came to the big leagues, and he threw a ton of strikes, which is put you in a good place to succeed. And it was mostly fastball, slider, and he had a tough time with the changeup. Then he accepted I'm going to throw a curveball, and the curveball made a world of difference. And he had some injury issues. And I know he's in Cincinnati. His arm action kind of shortened up a little bit. I was really happy to see him sign that contract with the Giants, because it is a little more pitcher friendly. And I think he goes out there with, fresh set of eyes. And I think, man, as long as he stays healthy, he and Cueto, they're like great competitors, and they'll rub off on the guys that are around him. That when it's my turn to pitch, all I want, I used to tell the guys, all I want is all you got. And those are two of the best that given all they had that day.
Yeah, the Giants have a ton of rotation arms that are former Cincinnati Reds. Cueto, Wood, Gausman, DeSclafani.
Oh, Gausman, man, that was a good sign for the Giants right there.
Yeah. He's got. I looked at they do a Baseball Savant has a thing called pitch value, and I think 2 of his pitches are top 6 in baseball. Four-seam fastball and splitter. So
the splitter is ridiculous. Yeah, I love Baseball Savant. A lot of good information on there.
Yeah, there's a lot of great information on there for sure.
Wood, man, he's good at. He was good in that division. Cincinnati, he had some injury problems, but I'm glad to see him go out there. He's a good guy. He pitched at Georgia Tech. I like how he throws the ball.
Yeah, back foot slider has been one of the best pitches as well.
Yeah.
So I know you still work. Do you still work with pitchers? What's kind of your status now? I know you're out of professional baseball, but do you still work with guys on the side?
I do. I have a couple of places here in Cary that I work, and I've worked from guys from minor league players to college players, high school, middle school kids, and now next week I'm starting a gig with Major League Baseball, I guess / USA Baseball. It's an elite prospect league that's all college freshmen and sophomores, and it's the old Appalachian League. So we embark on a 54 game schedule on June 3rd, and I'm assigned to the Greenville Flyboys, and I can't wait to get there. It should be fun. The league will be littered with all the guys that are there are considered top prospects to be drafted in 2022 or 2023. So it's scouted heavily by Major League Baseball. USA Baseball is in charge of the development. There's a lot of good managers in the league, former players, longtime scouts. Same thing with some of the pitching coaches as well. Should be a great league, and I'm looking forward to it.
So what is the first thing that you tell pitchers when you see them? Is there any like mental notes that you give them? Is it motivation? What is the first thing that you would say, or would it depend on the kid?
I would say great question. If I'm addressing the club for the first time, I will tell them that I'm here for them to succeed. So I'm going to give you all I got, and I expect you to give me all you got every day. And that goes. So I'm going to work my ass off to make you better, and I expect you to work your ass off as well. I think for these younger kids, you have to teach them accountability and responsibility. And I think these guys will, they're learning from a former major league coach. I got about eight years experience there to know like what it takes to prepare, what it is to mean to compete. And they'll get a lot of things that they have not gotten from other people. It'll be a good, unique perspective for all the guys that I get to work with.
Awesome. And are you hoping something bigger comes out of it for you?
Well, that would be good. I get there, and like I said, the league will be scouted by all 30 teams. And, if nothing comes out of it for me, I know that the 20 kids on my team will get a hell of a lot better come August 8th than they were when they get there on June 2nd.
There you go. Mack, I appreciate the time. It's been a lot of fun.
Riz, thank you, man. I enjoyed it. I really did. It's awesome.
You're welcome on anytime, and we could talk.
Oh, yeah. Bring me back anytime. We'll talk Greenville Flyboys next time if you want.
Yeah, for sure.
I'll send you a t-shirt, the Flyboys.
Flyboys. I'll check it out for sure.
All right.
You guys can follow the podcast on Twitter and Instagram at RizzoCast. And Mack, you're on Twitter, right?
I am. Mack Jenkins 57, I believe.
Yeah, go follow him. He will be back in the game for sure, because this USA baseball team is going to come through for themselves and for their excellent pitching coach.
And we got Homer Bailey on the team representing the Reds too.
Homer Bailey's on the team. Oh, is it that team?
Yeah.
What's that? Yeah, it's the one with Todd Frazier and Matt.
Todd Frazier, that's right. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I did see that then. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. Who's managing that team?
Mike Scioscia.
Mike Scioscia. That's right. Yeah, I did see the statement about that, and I saw some interviews. So that's awesome. Yeah, good luck with that. I'm sure it's going to be a lot of fun. You guys could, of course, subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Spotify, wherever you find your podcast. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.